Hi there, my name is Ron Rogers, and this video is titled, It Only Takes Seconds to Die. This is about two training events in Air Force pilot training back in 1974 with brand new instructors. I and the other instructor both went through instructor pilot training together down at Randolph Air Force Base, and in one case, the student and the instructor survived and the aircraft. And in the other case, the student barely survived, the aircraft was destroyed, and the instructor was killed. And these incidents happen days apart, actually 2 days apart. Now, I was selected to be an instructor in the T-37, and I and another lieutenant, we were both second lieutenants, I'll call him Lieutenant H, we were both in the same instructor training class down at Randolph Air Force Base. And Randolph Air Force Base is a very historic and beautiful base. It has a training history that goes back a long ways. And okay, not everybody is excited about being a T-37 instructor. Actually, I was told that I was going to be kept as an instructor. ATC had the ability to do that, and if I chose to stay and be an instructor, I guess it made it look like they weren't forcing me. If I chose to be an instructor, I'd get a T-38, and absolutely loved the T-38. But if I didn't choose to be an instructor, I'd get the T-37. Okay, well, I decided, okay, I don't have much choice. I wanted to fight her, but it was kind of, the writing was on the wall, so I chose to be an instructor. And of course, I go in there and get my assignment, and it's a T-37. It's like, what? To say I wasn't happy, but the wife of one of our ROTC instructors said that, you need to bloom where you're planted. So yeah, you don't know, things don't always work out the way you wanted, but you got to make the best of it. Well, not everybody felt that way. Oh, and the reason I didn't get the T-38 was our class commander, who was a captain. I was a second lieutenant, captain, second lieutenant. You're following this, okay? He decided at the last minute that he wanted to be a flight instructor, and of course he outranked me, so he got the 38. Now, of course, you see the blatant marketing here. It's not, this is shameless. I know that. It's not because I need to be reminded who I am as far as my name. I was reading the paper today, and it talked about a gentleman who is 74. I'm 73 and 10 months, so I'm not quite 74, but it kept referring to him as elderly. I flew aerobatics in my biplane yesterday, so I may be elderly, and I'm going to do a video on how I spent my 74th birthday, which is flying aerobatics. Partially how I spent it. But anyway, Lieutenant H was not happy about being selected as a T-37 instructor. But most of us, we decided we're going to make the best of it. And who would not be excited about flying the 6,000-pound dog whistle, the only aircraft ever designed to convert JP4 directly into noise through the J69 engines, the centrifugal flow engines that just didn't care about ice at all, not like the T-38 engines. And of course, one of the few aircraft actually designed to fly blunt in first. Now, of course, I like the other guys. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I wanted to fly the F-4. I love the F-4. A beautiful aircraft. It was years later I actually got a chance to fly it. And the F-15. Oh man, who wouldn't want to fly that? And I got to fly that in a test mission later, but it wasn't going to be the case. Now, of course, there are worse aircraft you can get to fly. Fortunately, the Air Force doesn't have any of these wonderful little airplanes called a Breezy. And in civilian life, I got to fly a Breezy. Not this one, but this one. And unfortunately, shortly after I flew it, a pilot was killed. He was going to refurbish the aircraft, and he ended up getting the control cables mixed, so the ailerons responded oppositely to what they should respond, and he crashed on takeoff and killed himself. Of course, I did get stuck in this aircraft for 4 months. That wasn't kind of the initial plan. I was going to go out to Edwards to be a chase pilot in the T-38. Okay, well, they sent me to, and I digress here, like the shirt says. They sent me to instrument pilot instructor school, and they said, well, we don't have a T-38. We'll put you in the A-37. Okay, not too bad. Well, we can't do that. We're going to put you in the O-2. And I talk about this in another video, how all this transpired, but I'm in the O-2. the T-38 and T-37, although not as impressive, has these things called throttles, and they have a go slow and a go fast. And in the 38, it's very nice go fast. Well, this doesn't have two throttles, or let's call them, engine control devices. It has six. Got, two throttles, two prop levers, and two mixture controls. So I got six throttles, 3 times the amount of little levers to play with, and I go just a fraction of the speed. Not my first choice aircraft, but I'm digressing here. Okay, back to the XT-37. Well, of course, there was only a couple of these built. They didn't have good spin characteristics, so they go, no, we need to do a few redesigns here. And if you look closely at this and you're familiar with the T-37, you notice it doesn't have the spin strakes on the nose, and the tail is a little shorter than the B model. This was the A model. So they made a few modifications to give it better spin characteristics. Okay, I'm down at Randolph, and one of the things we have to do as be an instructor is practice giving briefings, of course. So I was assigned to talk about ejection procedures. So here's right out of the book. It talks about, depending on where you are, you can either have a good ejection event, if you want to put it that way, or you can have a really bad one. And one thing I focused on here in my presentation was being in a bad situation where you're in a high-speed dive, and we practice a lot of the maneuvers. We practice at about 15,000 feet or so. The T-37, you don't go above 25,000 because it's not pressurized. So a lot of the stuff we do is in the mid-range, 15,000 for stalls and stuff, a little bit higher for spins than that. But if you get into a nose-low dive, things can get out of control really quickly. And one thing that kind of ticked me off in this briefing was Lieutenant H wasn't really paying attention, wasn't really caring. You could tell through the whole program that he really wasn't that interested in putting out great effort. And of course, the whole ejection procedure situation initiation is part of the emergency procedures, and things, the T-37 wasn't a super fast aircraft, but things can get out of control, get out of hand fairly quickly. Now there is the brand new instructor. Okay, I've got about 200 hours in the Air Force total, and now I'm the blind leading the blind. Of course, the old saying is that the best way to learn how to do something is to teach it, and really you really learn about flying if you have to teach it. Now let's talk about the particulars of this accident that occurred, this fatal accident. Now here's the control stick, and the little number 1 there points to the trim button, that little, they called it, I'm sure it's totally politically incorrect, but back in the 70s, that was called a coolie hat because it kind of looked like one. And that was the trim button for both pitch and aileron. And there's that little warning there. To preclude invert trim actuation, air crew should use extreme caution when performing maneuvers with 2 hands on the stick. Well, why would you do maneuvers with 2 hands on the stick? Well, there are a few. And one of the things we did was power on stalls. And this is supposed to teach the student how to recognize and recover from a nose-high attitude stall. So this is one of the things we talked, and here's in the primary flying jet. That was my little book there. And it talks about, losing control effectiveness, and typically you lose the ability to hold the nose up, it falls, and you can get you can get buffet, you can have loss of control a little bit, and it talks about keeping the nose going straight so you don't turn this power on stall into a power on spin, which would not be a good thing at all. And you set the throttles to 90%. And of course you do the common clearing the airing thing. And the instructor will show you what 40 degrees nose high looks like. Okay, so you set this thing up, you pull up to 40 degrees, and you slowly pull back on the stick. Now, one thing that you do is you trim to what's known as the takeoff trim position. This is where you know, it's like your typical on aircraft. You want to be in a trim setting for takeoff. It's kind of a neutral trim setting. And the old joke was, when the takeoff trim light comes on, do you take it off forward? Do you take it off back? Okay, no. This is where you put the trim, so it's kind of in a neutral position. And there's the little light there. Okay, that item number 4 there. I'm sorry, item number 5, that is the takeoff trim light. It's a little green light that illuminates to say that you are where you should be in the takeoff trim. Now here's what it looks like in the cockpit. Now this is kind of from the student's view. There it is. And of course you've got a canopy here with a lot of light coming in, and this is a small light bulb. It's a little hard to see, but that, you know, you kind of pay attention to it and you set it. And there's what it looks like from the instructor's position. Now you can see that, okay, you set this up, you get the green takeoff trim light, but from then on, it's not really in your primary view. It's something you set and, you know, forget, let's put it that way. And that now you commence the stalls. So here we are. We take the T-37 and we pull it up into a 40-degree pitch attitude. All right, now what happened up here, and this is of course a little bit exaggerated. My graphics isn't the most bestest here, but 40 degrees nose high to a lot of people will almost seem like you're going straight up, and you get the stall indication, and the nose pitches down, and you're supposed to go to 100% power because you're at low airspeed, and you know, you as part of the stall recovery, and then you recover from the dive. Well, what happened with Lieutenant Vic here, my student, he had placed both hands around the stick. And of course, when your hands are on the stick, where do your thumbs go? Well, the thumbs, unfortunately, are up here, which can very easily push on that trim button. And what my Lieutenant Vic had done, he had inadvertently started running the trim full nose down. Well, when the stall broke on this aircraft, this event, the nose violently pitched down, and he was not initiating recovery. So I come on, and of course now we're going straight down and we're picking up airspeed rapidly, and of course we've recovered from the stall, but I pull the power back to idle, drop the speed brakes, and I'm starting to pull back, and the stick forces are extremely high, and I am having extreme difficulty pulling back on the stick to recover. And I happen to glance over and see that the takeoff trim light is out. So I start running the trim back, and as I run the trim back, I'm gaining the ability to pull out now, and I was able to effect a recovery. Okay, well, that was kind of a lesson to be learned. It was, you know, not terribly a scary event, but it wasn't a wonderful event. And, you know, we went back in. Now, one thing I should emphasize here is I was at Vance Air Force Base as an instructor back about 1974. Lieutenant Vic was my very first student. I'm brand new instructor. And the other instructor, Lieutenant H, was at a different ATC training base, but we're both essentially going through the syllabus together. The classes are kind of aligned, and we both had, you know, new students, new class, we're going through it together. And so we were at the same point in the syllabus for my student and for the other student. Well, we hear about an accident at the other base. What had happened was they had gotten into a high-speed dive, and we didn't have a whole bunch of details at first, but the details started to come out. Basically, the same thing we were doing. It was power on stalls. They got into a high-speed dive. They did not, apparently, the instructor took over, according to the student who did survive. The student barely got out in time. The instructor commanded ejection. Apparently, he did not realize, or realized too late, what the problem was with the trim. They found the trim in the full nose down position. And this isn't a picture of the accident. I don't have a picture of the accident, and that's obviously not the tail of a T-37, but it's basically the aircraft impacted at very high speed, and the instructor, Lieutenant H, was just separating from the aircraft when the ejection seat hit. And as most of you probably know, the ejection seat on a T-37 is supposedly a 40 millimeter shell. Back then, I don't know if they ever improved it, but it barely got you out of the aircraft for the chute to deploy. Well, the Stanivel officer is up there and he's briefing the accident, and I'm sitting across from Lieutenant V, and he basically describes exactly our situation, but of course it was not analyzed in a timely enough fashion to affect a recovery. And the instructor, of course, was trying to recover from the situation, and delayed ejection, obviously too late. Like I said, the student barely got out, and kind of the funny thing was the student was so early in the training program. I mean, this is very early in the syllabus, that he was not actually able to provide much of a witness to exactly what happened. But the eyes on Lieutenant V were extremely big. So basically, the point of this is, take your job seriously. Things can go to hell in a handbasket very quickly, and this can happen to any instructor in any situation. And of course, the T-37 is considered to be a more docile aircraft. It's the first one the students start flying, but things can get out of hand very quickly and end very badly. Well, I hope you found this interesting and informative. Thanks for watching.